I stood outside the glass walls of the conference room, watching the champagne corks fly. It was the biggest day in the history of Nexus Systems. We had just closed the deal, a $400 million acquisition by a tech giant. Inside, I saw them laughing. There were the new marketing directors, the junior VPs who had been hired 6 months ago, and the investors who had called me risky back in the day. And in the center of it all, standing on the mahogany table with a bottle of Dom Perignon, was Marcus, my best friend, my business partner, the man I had shared a dorm room with when we were eating instant noodles and dreaming of this exact moment. I reached for the door handle. It was locked. I frowned and tapped my keycard against the scanner. A red light flashed. Access denied. That was strange. I was the co-founder. I wrote the code that made the security system work. Just then, Marcus looked up. He saw me standing on the other side of the glass. The room went quiet for a split second. I expected him to run over, unlock the door, and pull me into the celebration. I expected a hug. I expected him to shout, "Elias, we did it!" Instead, he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was a pitying smile, the kind you give to a dog that's about to be put down. He raised his glass to me, gave a small, dismissive wave, and then turned his back. He turned his back. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification from HR, subject, immediate termination of contract and revocation of clearance. I looked from the phone to the man inside the room. The celebration roared back to life, drowning out the silence in the hallway. I wasn't just late to the party. I had been erased from the guest list. To understand why I didn't scream, why I didn't pound on the glass until my knuckles bled, you have to understand what I gave to get us there. 10 years ago, Marcus and I were nobodies. Marcus was a visionary, sure. He could sell ice to a polar bear. He had the charm, the jawline, the expensive suits he bought on credit cards he couldn't pay off. But he couldn't code. He couldn't build. He couldn't make things work. That was me. I was the engine. I was the one who spent 4 years in a basement with no windows, typing until my vision blurred. I remember the night Nexus almost died before it even started. It was 2018. Our server architecture collapsed 3 hours before our first major demo with investors. Marcus was panicking, pacing the room, throwing things. He was ready to quit. He told me, "It's over, Elias. We're frauds." I didn't quit. I sat in that chair for 48 hours straight. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I drank lukewarm tap water and rewrote the entire back-end kernel from scratch. When the investors arrived on Monday morning, the system wasn't just working, it was flying. Marcus took the meeting. He walked in, smooth and rested, and took credit for the revolutionary speed of the platform. I was passed out on a beanbag chair in the back room, smelling like sweat and stale coffee. When he closed that first $1 million seed round, he bought himself a Porsche. I paid off my mother's medical bills and put the rest back into the company's servers. He told me, "Elias, you're the brain, I'm the face. That's how this works. You stay in the shadows, let me handle the spotlight. Trust me, brother, we rise together." I trusted him. I signed the papers he put in front of me without reading the fine print, because why would you read a contract from your brother? I let him take 51% of the voting shares because he said the investors preferred a single strong leader. I gave him my trust. I gave him my youth. I gave him the best code of my life. As the company grew, the distance between us grew too. By year 5, we had moved into a skyscraper downtown. Marcus moved his office to the top floor, a penthouse suite with a view of the city skyline. He hired assistants for his assistants. He started appearing on magazine covers, Forbes, TechCrunch, GQ. The genius behind Nexus, the headlines read. I was moved to the server floor on level 4. No windows, just the hum of the cooling fans and the glow of monitors. The meetings started to change. At first, I was invited to every strategy session. Then I was only invited to the technical ones. Then I was only invited when something was broken. I remember the day I realized I was becoming a ghost in my own company. I walked into the break room and overheard 2 new junior developers talking. "Who's that weird guy who sits in the back near the server room?" one asked. "Oh, that's Elias," the other replied, laughing. "I think he's IT support or something. He's been here forever. Marcus keeps him around out of pity." Pity. I walked straight to the elevator. I hit the button for the top floor. I marched past the receptionists, past the security detail, and burst into Marcus's office. He was sitting there getting a manicure while on a call. He looked annoyed that I had interrupted. "We need to talk," I said, my voice shaking. "Your staff think I'm IT support. I built this place, Marcus. Every line of code running this building came from my head." Marcus sighed, signaling the manicurist to stop. "Elias, relax. Does it matter what the interns think? Look at your bank account. You're rich. You're safe. Why do you need the ego boost?" "It's not about ego," I said. "It's about respect. You're pushing me out. You're making decisions without me. I heard you're looking to sell the company." He stood up then, walking over to me, putting a hand on my shoulder, that same heavy, reassuring hand he used when we were broke. "Elias, listen to me. I am not selling. I would never sell without you. We are building a dynasty, you and me. But right now, we need to polish our image. The market is volatile. They want to see sleek, modern leadership. You're a genius, but you're tired. You look tired. Why don't you take a sabbatical? Go to Bali. Relax for a month." I looked in his eyes. I searched for the friend I knew, and I thought I saw him. "I don't want a vacation, Marcus. I want to work." "And you will," he promised. "Just let me handle the business side. You trust me, right?" "I trust you," I whispered. That was 6 months ago, the last time we spoke face to face, until today. Which brings us back to the glass wall. After the security card failed, a security guard, a man I had hired 3 years ago, approached me. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Mr. Thorne," he mumbled, "I've been asked to escort you to the lobby." "By who?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "Mr. Sterling's orders," he said. "He said you're causing a scene." I looked back through the glass. Marcus wasn't looking at me anymore. He was shaking hands with the CEO of Omnicorp, the company buying us out. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't scream. I felt a cold, hard stone settle in my stomach. The justice porn videos on the internet always show the hero shouting, throwing a table, making a dramatic speech. Real betrayal doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like drowning. It's quiet. It takes your breath away. I let the guard escort me to the elevator, but I didn't go to the lobby. "Take me to my office," I said. "I need to get my personal effects." The guard hesitated. "Sir, the order was immediate removal." "Jerry," I said, using his name, "I hired you when your wife was sick. I gave you the advance for her surgery. Let me get my bag." Jerry stiffened. He remembered. "5 minutes, sir, but I have to stand at the door." We went to the 4th floor. My office, a cramped room next to the server farm, was already being packed up. A stranger in a suit was putting my notebooks into a cardboard box. "Who are you?" I asked. "Asset protection," the man clipped. Company property is being cataloged. Those notebooks are mine, I said, stepping forward. My private journals. Everything created on company time belongs to Nexus Systems, the suit said, dropping my leather-bound notebook into the bin. Section 14, Clause B of your employment contract. I stared at the box. My life's work, my algorithms, my ideas for the future, all of it being stolen in plain sight. I looked at the computer screen on my desk. It was locked out. My access was gone. But then I remembered something Marcus didn't know, something the lawyers didn't know, something asset protection couldn't find in a contract. I was the architect, and an architect always leaves a back door. Not in the code, that would be illegal, and they would find it during the audit. No, I had left a dependency. The entire Nexus system, the engine worth $400 million, relied on a specific encryption key to validate its data every 24 hours. If it didn't receive that handshake, it wouldn't crash, it wouldn't delete data, it would simply lock. It was a safety feature I designed years ago to prevent hacking, a dead man switch. And the authorization for that switch wasn't on the company's servers, it wasn't in the cloud, it was on a physical hard drive, a small, battered black external drive that I kept in the bottom drawer of my desk underneath a pile of old gym clothes. My heart hammered against my ribs. If the suit had checked the bottom drawer, it was over. I would lose everything. "I need my gym bag," I said, pointing to the corner. "Unless sweaty socks are company property too." The suit sneered. He kicked the bag toward me. "Take it. Make it quick." I bent down. My hands were shaking. I unzipped the bag. I pretended to check for my sneakers. My fingers scrabbled at the bottom of the bag, reaching under the fabric liner. I felt cold metal. The drive was there. I closed my fist around it. I pulled it out, hiding it inside a balled-up t-shirt, and shoved the whole bundle into my jacket pocket. "Done," I said, standing up. I walked out of the building with nothing but my gym bag and the small drive in my pocket. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, the rain started to fall. Typical. The city looked gray and hostile. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Marcus. "Elias, don't make this hard. The board voted. You're out. Your equity has been diluted to non-voting stock. You'll get a severance package if you sign the NDA by morning. It's generous. Take the money and go retire. You were never built for the big leagues." I read the text twice. Diluted. That's how he did it. While I was burying my head in the code, fixing his bugs, saving his reputation, he had been issuing new shares, bringing in new board members, slowly watering down my ownership until I was nothing more than an employee he could fire. He thought he had won. He thought he had the money, the company, and the fame. He had the building, he had the logo, he had the staff. But as I stood there in the rain, clutching the hard drive in my pocket, I realized he didn't have the heart. The Nexus system was due for its 24-hour validation check at midnight tonight. At 12 a.m., the system would reach out to a server that no longer existed, looking for a key that was currently sitting in my rain-soaked pocket. When it didn't find it, the $400 million platform, the one Omnicorp had just bought, the one Marcus was currently toasting to, would freeze. It wouldn't be destroyed. It would just stop. It would become a paperweight. And the only person in the world who knew how to restart it was just escorted off the premises. I didn't reply to Marcus's text. I didn't call a lawyer, not yet. I walked to the curb and hailed a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. I looked back at the skyscraper one last time. I could see the lights on the top floor. They were probably opening a second bottle of champagne. "Take me home," I said, "and then take me to the airport." Marcus wanted me to go to Bali? Fine, I'd go to Bali. But first, I was going to turn off his world. Midnight didn't sound like an explosion. It sounded like a notification chime, one single polite beep that echoed through the server room on the 4th floor, followed by the hum of the cooling fans slowing down. At the penthouse party, nobody heard the beep. Marcus was standing on a chair, raising a toast to the Omnicorp executives. He was telling them about the seamless integration and the unbreakable stability of the Nexus platform. He was shining. He was the king of the world. I was 30,000 feet in the air, somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, sipping ginger ale in economy class. I had turned my phone off before takeoff, but I didn't need to look at a screen to know what was happening. I could feel it. It was simple math. The validation script ran at 12:01 a.m. It pinged the local drive. It found nothing. It pinged again at 12:05. Nothing. By 12:01 a.m., the primary firewall would interpret the missing key as a hostile intrusion. To protect the user data, the system was designed to enter fortress mode. It locks every database, encrypts every user file with a 256-bit rotating key, and shuts down all external access ports. Back at the party, the music was still playing. The first sign of trouble wasn't a siren. It was a confused whisper from the Omnicorp CEO. He was looking at his phone. He frowned, tapped the screen, and refreshed his browser. Then he looked up at Marcus. "Marcus," he said, his voice cutting through the laughter, "why is the dashboard showing a 404 error?" Marcus laughed. He actually laughed. He thought it was a joke. "Probably just the Wi-Fi in here, John. The building has thick walls." "It's not the Wi-Fi," another executive said, her voice sharp. "I'm getting alerts from my team in London. The entire platform is dark. Global outage." The blood drained from Marcus's face. I can imagine him scrambling for his phone, trying to log into the admin panel. But there was no admin panel. There was only a black screen with a single line of white text. "Authorization key missing. System locked." This is the part where the panic sets in. Not the fast, adrenaline-pumping panic of a car crash, but the slow, suffocating panic of a man realizing he is underwater without a tank. Marcus ran to the elevator. He abandoned his guests. He abandoned his champagne. He mashed the button for the 4th floor. When he burst into the server room, the IT staff, the new guys he had hired to replace my team, were running around like headless chickens. They were typing furiously, rebooting servers, shouting about malware and Russian hackers. They didn't understand. It wasn't a hack. It was a dependency. "Fix it," he screamed. "We just sold this company for $400 million. Turn it back on." "We can't," a junior engineer stammered. It's asking for a physical handshake, a drive. It says the master key is missing." Marcus froze. The master key. He knew. In that moment, the memory must have hit him like a physical blow. The bottom drawer. The junk drawer he had mocked me for keeping. The drawer where I kept my gym clothes and my old hard drives. He pulled out his phone and dialed my number. "The subscriber you are calling is currently unavailable." He called again, and again, and again. By 3 a.m., the Omnicorp deal was paused. By 6 a.m., the news had leaked. Nexus Systems goes dark after acquisition announcement. By the time I landed in Bali, the stock price of Omnicorp had dropped by 4%. That doesn't sound like much, but when you're a trillion-dollar company, 4% is billions. I turned my phone on in the taxi on the way to my villa. 300 missed calls, 57 voicemails, 400 text messages. The first texts were angry. "Answer the phone, Elias. Stop playing games. I'll sue you into oblivion." The middle texts were bargaining. "Look, let's talk. We can work something out. I can get you a consulting fee. Just tell us the password." The last texts, the ones that came in just a few minutes ago, were desperate. "Please, they're going to kill the deal. They're talking about fraud charges. Elias, pick up." I didn't reply. I didn't smile. I just felt tired. I told the taxi driver to stop at a local market. I bought a cheap burner phone and a local SIM card. I sent one email to the General Legal Counsel of Omnicorp, not to Marcus, but to the people buying him. The email was short. Subject: the key. Body: the asset you purchased is incomplete. The architecture requires a chaotic encryption key to function. It is my personal intellectual property, created on personal equipment prior to the incorporation of Nexus. It is not company property. It is for sale, but the price has gone up. I hit send. Then I threw the SIM card into the ocean and went to sleep. For the first time in 10 years, I slept without an alarm. 3 days. That's how long it took for them to find me. I was sitting at a small wooden table on the beach, eating fresh mango and watching the waves roll in. The humidity was heavy, but the air smelled sweet. I wore a linen shirt and sunglasses. I looked like a tourist. I didn't look like the man holding the fate of a Silicon Valley unicorn in his pocket. I heard the footsteps in the sand before I saw them. Heavy, frantic footsteps. "Elias!" I didn't look up. I took another bite of mango. "Elias, look at me!" I turned slowly. Marcus was standing there. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled. He hadn't shaved in days. His eyes were red-rimmed and wild. Behind him stood 2 men in dark suits, lawyers from Omnicorp. They looked out of place on the tropical beach, sweating in the heat. "You look tired, Marcus," I said softly. "You should take a sabbatical. Maybe Bali?" "This isn't funny," Marcus screamed. He lunged forward, but one of the lawyers held him back. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The servers are wiped. The backups are encrypted. We're losing $1 million an hour." "The servers aren't wiped," I corrected him calmly. "They're just locked, safe, waiting for the owner to come home." One of the lawyers stepped forward. He held a briefcase. "Mr. Thorne, my name is Arthur. I represent Omnicorp. We are prepared to offer you immunity from prosecution if you hand over the drive immediately. However, if you refuse, we will have the local authorities detain you for corporate espionage and theft." I laughed. It was a dry, sharp sound. Theft? I didn't steal anything. I left with my gym bag. The drive contains code I wrote in 2014, 3 years before Nexus was incorporated. I have the timestamps. I have the metadata. If you arrest me, the drive stays hidden. And if the system stays locked for another 48 hours, the encryption becomes permanent. The data doesn't just stay locked, Arthur. It dissolves. $400 million. Poof. The lawyer went pale. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He looked at Marcus, then back to me. "What do you want?" "I want to sell my property, the key. It's a specialized piece of hardware, very rare." "How much?" Marcus spat. "We offered you a severance package. You want double? Fine, we'll give you double." I stood up then. I brushed the sand off my pants. I walked over to Marcus until I was standing toe-to-toe with him. He smelled like fear and stale airplane air. "I don't want a severance package, Marcus. I don't want a salary. I don't want to be an employee." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small black hard drive. I held it up. The sunlight caught the scratched metal casing. "This drive is for sale. The price is $50 million, cash, wired to an offshore account of my choosing. "You're insane," Marcus whispered. That's extortion." "No," I said, "that's business. You taught me that. Supply and demand. I have the supply, you have the demand." "We can't pay that," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "The deal hasn't gone through. We don't have the liquidity." "Omnicorp has the liquidity," I said to the lawyer. "They can deduct it from the acquisition price, which means, Marcus, it comes out of your share." Marcus's eyes widened. He did the math. His share of the buyout was roughly $60 million. If I took 50, he would be left with scraps. After taxes and legal fees, he would break even. 10 years of work, the magazine covers, the fame, all of it, for nothing. "You can't do this to me," Marcus pleaded. Tears were actually forming in his eyes now. "Elias, please, we're brothers. Remember the dorm room. Remember the instant noodles. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I pushed you out. Just give me the drive, please. Don't ruin me." I looked at him. I looked at the man who locked me out of my own company, the man who had erased me, the man who had told me I was just IT support. I remembered the dorm room. I remembered trusting him. "I remember you telling me that you were the face and I was the brain. Well, Marcus, the brain just made a decision." I held the drive out to Arthur, not Marcus. $50 million, I said to Arthur, "or I throw this into the ocean right now." Arthur didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone. "I'm authorizing the transfer." Marcus fell to his knees in the sand. He sobbed. It wasn't a dignified sound. It was the sound of a man watching his ego die. 10 minutes later, the confirmation pinged on my burner phone. The money was there. I handed the drive to Arthur. "The password," I said to Marcus, "is loyalty." Arthur took the drive and ran back to the waiting car. Marcus stayed in the sand, weeping. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't offer him a hand up. I just turned back to the ocean. They say success is the best revenge, but they're wrong. The best revenge is silence. The best revenge is proving that without you, the machine doesn't work. I ordered another mango juice. The sun was setting, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about the code. I wasn't worried about the servers. I was just free.